For Bruner's inactive mode, I chose to represent my learning theory using a recipe, which is why we are here in my kitchen. The 4 parts of my learning theory are motivation, method, content, and reflection. The first part is motivation. Now, in motivation, the first thing we need to do is set our goals and objectives so that we are motivated and we know where we are going. That will motivate us to get there. My motivation for this goal is to have this cookie when I get done. That is my goal. My objectives are to follow the recipe, measurements correctly, use the correct methods when necessary, cooking, baking correctly, and cooling correctly. All of these things are important when considering motivation. The next part of motivation is positive, negative reinforcement and punishment. For my positive reinforcement, when I get finished with my recipe, I'm going to have this awesome cookie that I'm going to get to eat. That is enough motivation for me. For negative reinforcement, one of the ingredients in this recipe includes espresso. Now, I'm going to take that away because sometimes espresso can make the cookie bitter or even be a little bit too strong. Bitterness is kind of like homework. Sometimes we can take a little bit of homework away to sweeten the cookie or sweeten the method. The other thing that we must add to motivate is punishment. Sometimes punishment can even be hard for the teacher, but it's a necessary part. One thing to represent punishment comes with vanilla extract. If you eat vanilla just like it is, it's very bitter and I wouldn't want to do it. I don't recommend it. But whenever you put vanilla mixed with other ingredients like method and content, then it can create something very, very sweet. So by itself, punishment can be pretty bitter, but mixed in with other things, turns out to be sweet. The other part of motivation comes through the ARCS model: attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. With attention, you've already gotten my attention. I get to eat this cookie when I'm done. I'm ready to go. Relevance, the cookie is very relevant to this time of year because it is a double chocolate peppermint cookie. Peppermint is very popular during the holiday season. For example, you have your candy canes, and you also have your Starbucks peppermint mocha, seasonal drink of course. So these things is very relevant to today. So our motivation is to keep our content relevant. Then we have our confidence. When we make this cookie, we're going to feel very confident when we taste it because it's going to taste great, it's going to look great. Others are going to get to see our product and they're going to encourage us because they're going to say, this is good. So it's going to boost our confidence when we're done. Satisfaction, we're going to find satisfaction in the fact that we created this cookie and it tastes wonderful. The next part of my learning theory is method. And that is also the next part of this recipe. After we have all of our ingredients, we have to follow specific methods for specific types of ingredients, just like we create specific learning activities for specific learning styles. We read in an article this semester that we can't necessarily pinpoint each learning style for each student, but we can plan in a way that accommodates to those learning styles. One of the things part of our recipe is we must take all of the dry ingredients and mix those together. This is a necessary method. They must be mixed separately from the wet ingredients. We can compare these dry ingredients to our visual learners. There are many different colors. We can see the different textures and breaks in those textures. And given the proper tools, we can mix this all up to make a great product. The next part of our method is going to include mixing together separately from the dry ingredients our wet ingredients. when you get those wet ingredients, we can compare this to our auditory learners, because it's going to make quite an interesting sound that is very intriguing whenever mixed together. That is a different method. On the other hand, there's another part of this recipe that is extra special, and it takes an extra special method. That is melting your chocolate morsels. The chocolate morsels must be melted before they're added in with the wet ingredients. So we put the chocolate morsels on the stove in a frying pan like so, and put water in the bottom and your chocolate morsels in a bowl. And as you stir the chocolate morsels, it's going to take some time. Just like sometimes it's going to take some extra time to plan those special learners for those kinesthetic learners and also for our special needs students. Sometimes we have to go a little bit above and beyond. I could have bought chocolate that melted easily in the microwave, but I chose not to because I knew that this kind would be the best for my recipe. So when we're done, all that extra time is definitely well worth it, because look how delectable and yummy that is. Then, whenever we've come up with all of these different methods, we've used our methods for our recipe, we're going to mix them all together in one bowl, and it's going to create the greatest dough you've ever tasted before it's even cooked. So it's going to be a great recipe with all of our methods are combined. The next part of my learning theory is content. When we mix all of our methods together, we got to make sure we get the right consistency. We want to make sure that it's age appropriate. Our learning content should be age appropriate. Now, when we mix it, it has to be the appropriate texture, appropriately mixed, not too much, not too little. The next part of content is to advance it. Now, when we bake our cookie, we're going to come out with something like this, or this. This cookie is great. It's going to taste great. It's going to look great. But sometimes, to catch the attention of those advanced palates, say they've already had this. They've already had this cookie. They know what it tastes like. We want to surprise them. So we might add something a little extra by dipping it in chocolate, white chocolate, and sprinkling some crushed up peppermint or candy cane on top. Something surprising, something really, really decadent to catch their attention for those advanced learners. We made an advanced cookie. Last part of my learning theory is reflection. Reflection is an extremely important part that sometimes we don't acknowledge as much. The students should reflect on their learning. When I bake my cookie, I am definitely going to reflect because it's going to be yummy. But I'm also going to reflect on my method. Could I have done something different to make the cookie even better? Also, I want to evaluate the trajectory. How involved are the students? How involved are other people in enjoying my cookie? Could I have done something better to get them more involved, to make them more attractive? So, those are the parts of my learning theory as represented with this wonderful double chocolate peppermint cookie. So, I hope you've enjoyed this little rendition of my inactive mode. Now, let's enjoy some reflection together.